So I would love for you all to introduce yourselves and give us your name, your pronouns, and your title. First off, I've been speaking all day. You're probably tired of me. My name is Windsor Western. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm one of the co-founders here at Her Campus Media.
Hi, I'm Annie Wu Henry. My pronouns are she, her. And my title right now is kind of a work in progress, so we'll probably get there on this panel.
Hi everyone, my name's Gigi Robinson. I am from New York City and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And my title right now is also kind of like girl boss vibes, which is perfect for this panel. So I'll just leave it at that.
Hi everyone, my name is Barbara Alyssa Gonzalez. My pronouns are she, her. I'm also, we good? We good. My pronouns are she, her. I'm also a native New Yorker, and I currently work at Spotify on the podcast editorial team, working specifically on US Latinx content. I speak really loudly, so
Great.
Amazing.
So I want to open this conversation today from a place of non-judgment. It feels like every few years we hear moral panic in the news, people saying, this generation doesn't want to work. And I don't know about y'all. We're going to give them a second. Y'all good? Maybe? Cool. We know that isn't true. Actually, will you raise your hand if you do want to work? Okay, almost everybody. And those of you who didn't raise your hands, respect. Some of you are like, I actually don't, and that's cool too. We may all joke about, I don't dream of labor, or no more girl bossing, just girl resting, just girl lying down. But what we all really want is better conditions and better balance within the workplace. So for a lot of us, whether we're in college or whether we've recently graduated or thinking about what a dream job might be, we don't just think, what's the hottest industry to be in right now, or what's going to get me to the C-suite or the editor-in-chief position anymore. We have a lot of talent, but there's a lot more skepticism towards traditional career aspiration and a lot more focus on values and balance and a holistic life. So it's not just a great career, it's a great career within the context of a great life. So today we are going to dig into that a little bit more and find out if the dream job even exists anymore. So these three incredible professionals have these very unique perspectives on this. So first question, tell us in a few words, what was your journey? When you were a student, what was your dream job? And how does it relate to what you're doing now, if it does at all?
Okay, I'll start off. Oh, thank you. I'll start off. I was a major in journalism and mass communications at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, so hey, Wisco. And I really wanted to be a magazine journalist. My dream job was to be EIC at a Teen Vogue or a 17 magazine to make those spaces more diverse. So that was really the dream at that point. But then after college, I dabbled in journalism. I had 3 jobs at Univision, at Latina Magazine, and at Urban One. And then at some point, honestly, I got a little bit burnt out about being scared of getting laid off, because that was a reality and still is a reality that a lot of folks in editorial face. So I'm like, okay, there's a better way to use my talents as a writer, as a comms person, and that's when I decided to go into nonprofit realm where I was doing marketing and communications. And I was still doing all the same things. I still had the same mission of trying to make those spaces and make media spaces, make PSAs more diverse. And then while I was working at said nonprofit, then I got an opportunity where I was part of a program called Ad Color Futures, where I was introduced to a lot of folks in tech, and I eventually met who would be my manager at Google Creative Lab. And when someone asks you, hey, I really think that you have the great chops to work at Google, do you want to come work at Google? I don't think you really say no, even if you really do like your job. So then I worked at Google Creative Lab for a little bit as a team lead, where I was still using those same skills, marketing and communications, writing, all of that, and I was still really working to make those marketing things a lot more diverse, still my passion. And then from the Creative Lab, I ended up at Spotify, and it was very much so a full circle moment where I was working in editorial again, but in the podcasting realm, and working with Latinx voices and Latinx creators, making sure that they have a space on Spotify where they feel like they're amplified. So I think, honestly, even though it wasn't the route that I expected to go on, it was still very much in line with my passions and where I originally wanted to be all along.
That was awesome, right? So like I mentioned before, I've kind of always had this girl boss hustle mindset. So I went to USC in Los Angeles. Do we have any USC people here? Fight on, boo. And I started out in a social media club called USC Reach, and it was a club that just focused on building your brand as an influencer, content creator, whatever it was that you were involved with social media, like that this was the place to be. So I did fine art at USC, and that was kind of unique. It was very conceptual at the time, but I ended up doing a lot as a photographer on staff at USC for their hospitality group. And then after that, I ended up also working in entertainment at Warner Bros. And Paramount, and then also in aerospace at the Aerospace Corporation doing photography. So I don't really know what my end goal was. It was always photography, creative direction, social media, entertainment. And then I was a 2020 graduate. Do we have any other 2020 grads in here? Okay, woo! Yay for us. And 2021 too. You guys are special also. So I graduated from USC on my couch, which was sad because I wanted that big graduation after 4 years of undergrad, and I decided to continue doing my influence as I was doing part-time at USC. And I really shifted my messaging from just talking about different products that I love to actually talking about things I was passionate about and things I lived with. So mental health problems, so like problems with balancing my mental health on social media, letting the algorithm kind of like take me down its dark hole, and like making sure I knew I had the resources and tools to stop that from making me go into a negative space. So I started talking about the positive things, learning about social media literacy, and then actually talking to different chapters of her campus, the VS Pink campus chapters, about social media literacy, and also implementing that into PR and marketing classes at USC and beyond. So that was really epic, and it's kind of led me to where I am today as a public speaker. And also, I wasn't done with school, so I enrolled in a master's degree also at USC, and I am now one semester away from being done with that. So who knows, thank you, who knows where that will lead me, or if I end up being a teacher or a speaker, and I also model, so that's fun, and do content creation full time.
She was in the last Sports Illustrated issue.
A lot.
As well.
So yeah, that's that. And I think, did my dream job exist back then? I don't think so. I think it's now, so yeah.
Okay, so I started out wanting to be a lawyer for pretty much from when I was like...
Girl, same. It was the Legally Blonde thing. Like,
Okay,
Like-
but Windsor is legally blonde, right?
but without the legal part, so...
Like from 7 years old to essentially my junior year of high school when it actually got to be important, I was like, I'm gonna be a lawyer. And so I went to a liberal arts college. I was doing some athletics there and trying to figure that out. And then I very much shifted and was like, I think I wanna go into more of the communications space, open it up a little bit, and I decided to transfer. And I transferred to a school that was great for a year, and then I transferred again. And I was someone very much in high school. I graduated at the top of my class, not so much because I was the smartest, but because I just worked really hard. And I always was following kind of the path. And this was the first time when things weren't going as planned. It wasn't like next year I'm going to be taking these AP classes, next year I'm going to be doing these things, and then I'll have these good grades and be able to apply to the schools and get in, and everything made sense. And so the year down at the school I was at for my sophomore year, I always call it the best, worst year of my life. But I just started doing things because I wanted to do them, not because I thought that it was what was going to look best on my resume or what was going to be, the most impressive or the most popular thing to do, but things because I wanted to do them. So I took a job at a PR firm. I was like an extra in movies for some extra money, like a lot of random fun things. I applied to be a writer at her campus and got rejected. So you can do it. You can end up here. But then I ended up transferring to another school, ended there, got really involved in our campus newspaper, some student groups, and as social media was evolving during that, I started, talking about that, sharing things again about my life, but also things I cared about. And I remember getting the swipe up link and being really excited because then I could share like articles and resources. And so then after graduation, I took a very boring corporate job. And the company was very kind to the employees and everything, but it was just not my passion, wasn't interesting. But it did let me live in New York City, it let me pay my bills, and it made sense. And it also gave me the work-life balance to be able to pursue things on the side that I cared about and that I was interested in. So was it my dream job? No, but it made sense for my life at the time. And then that took me out to California. The world shut down. I started getting more involved online. Things kind of happened on social media by accident because, I was kind of sharing things that I cared about, and then they resonated with people in some way or another, I guess. And so then I, kept going into that space. And so I ended up back on the East Coast. I took another corporate job because I like stability. And I actually just left that corporate job 3 weeks ago. So I quit my job, which was a big move because I'm sure we'll start getting to it, but about company values, things like that. But I got involved in a political campaign in Philadelphia, which is where I am now, and I just kind of have been running with things in that space as well as things online. I do some social media consulting, I do some stuff on my own, and so I don't really have necessarily a bucket I'm in, but I'm really enjoying what I do. And so I don't know if I have a title. I do a lot in the social space. And yeah, that's kind of the journey.
Well, Annie, I love that. And I think the fact that you applied to be a writer for her campus, got rejected, and then got invited a few years later to speak on the stage at her conference just really tells you that, I think it tells you a lot about rejection in general, because so many people, so many talented people apply for so many different opportunities. And a lot of times someone will get rejected from an internship or a job or some opportunity and think, I'm not worthy, or I shouldn't pursue this anymore. I clearly don't have what it takes. And at the end of the day, there's a numbers game. Any internship that we post on her campus, we get hundreds and hundreds of applications for that one internship. Any job, we get hundreds of applications for that one job. And there are probably 40 people that would be qualified to do that job, and we're hiring one. And so I think that it's just a good reminder, right? That every opportunity, if you get a no, okay, that was just that one. You keep trying. You can keep trying at that same company and get invited to speak on the stage a little bit later. So I want to talk about considerations that you all have made and that you would recommend our attendees making as you're deciding what path or role to pursue. There are so many different considerations you can think. Does this role, does this opportunity relate to a career path that I want to go down? Is this not the industry that I want to work in, but it's the type of job that I want to do? So maybe I don't care about the industry, but I like the exact job. Or is it just this is a lifestyle that I want to have? The lifestyle I would be able to have through this job aligns with my personal values? How do you evaluate which opportunities to pursue as they align to your dream life rather than just your dream job?
That's such a good question that I think that personally for me, I typically think of what I'm passionate about. Obviously, as I've stated before, my passions are communications, writing, et cetera, but more importantly, uplifting diverse voices in the marketing and comms space. So one thing that I was considering when I was weighing the options of going from my nonprofit job, which I loved a lot, I loved the team that I was working on, and I thought that I was doing really impactful work, And then when I got the Google offer, I was like, okay, well, I've never really seen myself as someone who would go into tech. Is this a opportunity that I'm going to like sell my soul for? Like, what's going to happen here? But ultimately, I realized that this was going to be an amazing opportunity where I was going to be challenged in a professional way in which I had never been before. Just diving into a brand new industry, seeing how they work there, what skills I can learn. I think that the biggest skill that I took away from that job is how to make a pristine deck, which I think is an invaluable skill that anyone can get. And then, of course, like I couldn't discount the fact that I would be having Google on my resume and how that ultimately does get you in the door in a lot of places. So even if that wasn't going to be the job where I was going to be at forever, because realistically, as we've discussed, like that's really just not the case anymore. I knew that I was going to have so many skills that I was going to be able to learn there, but then I was also going to bring my own skills to the team that I was working on in terms of like making sure that the folks there knew that we needed diversity in the campaigns that we were working on, not just from a racial or a gender perspective, but like an ability perspective, perspective from sexuality, et cetera, et cetera. So even though it's important to think about the things that a company will offer to you, you have to think about what you're going to bring to the company as well and not discount that. So that's what I'll say on that.
Yeah, that was an amazing answer. I was thinking a lot about how I landed internships in college because I also ended up applying to hundreds and hundreds of internships that went into an internet black hole. Who else? Yeah, has that happened? Okay, yeah, basically everyone here. And that can be so defeating a lot of the time, but it just takes that one yes, and once you have that, it's really a 3 to 6 month trial period with a company to see their values, to see what your workflow can be like, what you can bring to the table, what you can get out of it, how does it fit on your resume, how are you gonna bring those skills elsewhere. And a little story that I really think about is when I got this job randomly at the Aerospace Corporation doing photography. It's like, what is this girl who does social media and entertainment doing at a space company, right? It's confusing. But fast forward 6 months after I ended that internship, I got an interview with Paramount. And I was explaining my experience, and the person interviewing me had a parent who worked in the aerospace industry. So we bonded over that, and I was hired 2 weeks later. So that was super cool, and that just came because I kind of put myself out there, and I put myself in a role that I thought would challenge me, but also wasn't necessarily my dream job at the time. But then I also have worked in agency, which can be very fast-paced. I've also worked in startup as a contractor, and that was so fast-paced, and it was burning me out. And I think when I think about working with companies now as a contractor, I think about the values of the company and also how prepared I am for burnout for the work that I'm doing. I don't know if that made sense to anyone here, but if you're more prepared, you can kind of, I think, stop the burnout before it actually happens and have a conversation with your boss or the person you're working with on a campaign and saying, I need to actually stop and take a beat, or I need 2 weeks off, or I'm actually sick, and because the world's virtual, I'm gonna actually need to take that time instead of just working remotely from my bed, which is what I do all the time anyway. So that's what I guess I would say on that.
For considerations, I guess it's not a one-size-fits-all. Same with the dream job. And my considerations are gonna be different from their considerations are gonna be different than every single one of your considerations. So for me, it's evolved in my life as well. So when I got out of college, I wanted to, first and foremost, make sure I had a job that could support me because I didn't have help from my parents or different things. I was supported in like their love, but I didn't have a lot of generational wealth or money to make sure that I could, get an apartment in New York and things like that I could pay towards my college loans. And so my priorities then were really like, is this going to do these things? Is it going to give me time to be able to do things in my free time and try to figure out what my life is outside of college? Now, so I kind of have more flexibility as I have more so established myself, and I can be more picky. I can choose more of what I want to do. And so at the same time, I think I've dabbled in a lot of different areas so that I can continue that. Like, for example, like, I love the content creation space. However, I very intentionally made it that I'm not just solely doing that, because I want to be able to say, no, I don't want to do this ad because I don't agree with it, or no, I want to log off for the week because I'm just tired, and not feel the pressure of like, oh, but how am I going to pay my bills? So I've done a lot of different areas that are things that fulfill me in different ways, and all of my considerations are usually like, how is this adding to like what I want to get out of life, and also like supporting me in not only like my mental, my financial state, but like also like supporting me in like what I want to do with my life and where I want to go to get there. So, yeah.
I think that's great. And I think bringing up the financial component of work is really important as well, right? And balancing and asking those questions with the internship, with the job. What does the work look like, right? What does the vacation policy look like? But do that in the right way. Going in to get a job and asking right away, how much vacation do I get, does not send the right signal. But balancing it out, right? Because we do have to pay our bills. As independent women, we have to pay our bills. We got to get our goals in line. So what do you think young people are aspiring to? What values do you think is driving Gen Z in the workforce right now?
Oof, that's a little bit difficult for me because I'm a millennial. I feel like I'm coming out the crypt as I'm saying that. But I think that I have so much respect and excitement for Gen Z in terms of what y'all are bringing to the workforce. You're really challenging folks to think about what is necessary in a job. And to Winster's point, it's like thinking about like, oh, I should be paying all of my employees a fair wage, that if they want to live in a city like New York where the prices of everything, the inflation is going up every single day, it seems like, that they can live here comfortably, because those are just basic human rights. I don't know. Another thing is, like, as we mentioned, like having time to log off and be able to just chill out and like spend time with your friends and family. That's also so important in order to just like be a regular person off the clock and on the clock. I think that was something that I didn't realize mattered to me so much up until this past year when I first started working at Spotify, is that because it's a Swedish company, they really value like making sure that you have like mental health days and making sure that you get your sick days in. And that was something that I didn't realize mattered to me up until I had it. And then just going back to the finance part really quickly, even though, like I said, loved my nonprofit job, I loved my journalism jobs, I was living at my parents' house up until I was 26 years old. Yep, exactly. It's a reality that I think that oftentimes we have a lot of shame over, but it's a reality for so many of us that there's just like no money if you are not making that within your day job to pay off student loans, to be able to like hang out with your friends, be able to just do regular things, and then also like work your job. So I think that all that being said, it's just a matter of like having the basic things to do your job, and like shout out to Gen Z for actually advocating for that. Whereas like my millennial generation, we tried, we would like in a voice very quiet like this, but y'all are being loud and proud about it, which I love. Thank you so much.
Right? Yay for Gen Z, right? So I am 24. I am a member of Gen Z, and something that I think I've always been driven by is the opportunity to do anything that I want, anywhere that I want. And when the pandemic happened, that made it very clear. I mean, Her Campus has been a remote company like for years, so bravo to Her Campus for being like one of the first. And I've always admired that, especially in all of the chapters that you started with college students. It shows them that you can write for a national organization anywhere, and I think that that's really cool. So I joined like your, Influence Her Collective, Campus Trendsetters back in the day, and that's what I think that's where I realized that you could get paid for working on social media, and that's also something that I think fueled my interest in working remotely, creating content anywhere, and also as somebody living with a chronic illness, it's extremely important for me to be able to take calls from bed or take a day off or spend half of my day at a doctor's appointment and then go home and go on a call if I need to, or go to a photo shoot like out of the country. Like it can be anything, anytime, and I think that's really important. So I think flexibility is the biggest word, but also like you're allowed to have flexibility within constraints, right? So it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's just really fun and valuable. And then the other thing is about the people that you get to work with. And as a contractor, having my own business, working with so many brands, meeting new people is my most favorite thing that I look for. And I think that's what a lot of Gen Zers are looking for, is to network, really. We're like the generation that really loves networking. And I think that's super special because we say it loud and proud. And we're like, okay, I do want to work with you because you advocate and you're an ally to XYZ communities. And that resonates with me. And it's really about building a relationship with the people that are also doing what you're doing.
So I'm 26. I fall right in the middle. Depending who you ask, I'm a Gen Z. Depending who you ask, I'm a millennial.
Gen Zennial.
Yeah, I'm a zillennial, whatever. And I think that how I've gone about things has been very much of both. But I think, the first company I worked for, similar to your experience, was a European-based company. And they really cared for their employees, and it was very apparent. And when I remember saying that it wasn't my passion, but the company really took care of us. And that was really apparent. And then in contrast, then going to a more recent company, not that any of the people I was working with they were all wonderful people. And it was, a big brand that a lot of you probably know. And on a resume sounds like something that you'd be proud to say. However, from like the company-wide standpoint of what they were doing to provide for their employees or just to care for them or show that they value you more than just an employee, that to me wasn't apparent. And looking at things like a full woman-led team, which feels really progressive and really, 2022. However, on leadership, there was not a single woman of color. There was not a single member of the LGBTQ plus community. There were so many things that then they just weren't making the mark for what I wanted to do or for what I wanted to be a part of. As well as I think we talk about, the pandemic. I think it really exposed how companies were caring for their employees because everyone was going through it. And it was, what are they doing to make sure that people are okay and they're taken care of? And obviously, anything in business, there is a bottom line, but there's also, the humanity of things. And so I think it's just, again, up to individuals on what they value and what they're going to prioritize with what their values are, what their ethics are, or just what their priorities are again. But for me, it's just been very apparent for when you can see that either a boss or a company as a whole is truly valuing you, or if they're just being nice to you, because they're very different things.
Awesome. This has been so insightful, and I have 14 more questions, but we don't have time to ask them. We do have time for a few questions from the audience. Yes, if you'll say very loudly your name. Oh, never mind, we have a microphone. Don't shout. Tell us who you are, your Her Campus connection, and then ask your question.
Awesome. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle Farage. I'm a work futurist and speaker. I speak about the future of work. My tie to Her Campus is that I'm best friends with Gigi. She's my bestie girl boss. Amazing person. We went to USC together too. Anyway, my question for the panel is, there's a lot of talk. We started kind of touching on it in the last panel, but there's a lot of talk about the intersection of the creator economy with the current sort of future of work trends. So I kind of want to hear, from all of you, how do you see creators fitting into the puzzle of the next really generation of work? And, from the context of, or the perspective of even treating creators as employees or giving them ownership, and things like that, and like really treating them as part of the team versus maybe a contract worker, for example. So that's my question. Thank you so much.
I think I'm going to leave it to the creators on the panel.
Love this question. Obviously, I know we've talked about this extensively, but I will impart some wisdom here. I think, obviously, how many of you are creators in the audience? A lot of, okay, that's like, I feel like about a third of you here, which is really awesome. And I know the question was asked of how many people work in influencer marketing, also assuming it's a bunch of people here. But I really think about myself as an employee fitting into a company's values, as well as advocating for the proper amount of payment, because I think a lot of the time it's overlooked as, oh, we're just hiring someone to create some content and to, be on an episode of something, or to just post on their social media or attend an event. But again, we have to pay the bills at the end of the day. And if I have an LLC, I have to fit into certain tax brackets, and a third of my income goes directly to taxes. So whenever I'm calculating my rate, I'm really thinking about, can I pay my rent? Can I pay my bills? Can I pay my entire Gen Z team? Shout out Chloe, one of my interns in the audience. And I think that's really it. It's about compensating them properly. And I know there's a lot of different things, are we basing payment for creators now just on engagement rate? I think that's in the past. I think, and I kind of don't know if I love or hate that I'm saying this, but it is kind of based on the social clout of what you've done in the industry, who you've worked with, the magnitude that your work touches. Also, press is a big thing that fits into it as well. And how is your creative resume going to build out kind of like a brand deck or a media kit? That's what I always call my resume in the industry. But I also thought about it very deeply of I've been doing my own thing for 2 years now. What do I write on my resume, right? And how, if I did want to go back to a job in corporate, working part-time or as a contractor, what would I even submit? Do I submit my media kit? I submitted it for grad school as my application, and that got me in. So it does work in some ways, but yeah, those are some thoughts.
Yeah, go for it.
I would just say, I think, pay transparency. I think I've seen a lot of creators being more transparent about how they're being paid, what it's like to be just given exposure versus being actually paid money. I get skincare, but I keep getting skincare. That's not going to pay my electric bill. And so I think there's been a lot more transparency, which is really helpful for everyone, as well as when we think of intersectionality and making sure people are being paid equitably across the spectrums of whether it's race, whether it is LGBTQ, that everyone is being paid as they should be. I think also, creators are only creators because of, I saw a group of people raise their hands and a group of people didn't. But you're probably consuming the content. And trends or what people are talking about or what's the topic of conversation, which then is put pressure on companies and people to be, we need to be in this space. We need to be more sustainable. We need to be more diverse. All of these things are really also not just because of creators, but they're because of consumers as well of media. And so being aware, even if you're not a creator, of what you're consuming and how that's going to, perhaps affect the trajectory of things and your impact on it is also important.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And we don't have time as a group, but can we give them a big round of applause? That was such an insightful and inspiring conversation. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.